I'm Rachel. I finally hit my 60s, but I'm still going strong. I've been with my husband, Gerald, for 25 years, and we're still getting along just fine. Our only son, Todd, just turned 34. 2 years ago, he married Maddie, who's 12 years younger, and they live out of state. Apparently, his in-laws live just 5 minutes away, and because Maddie isn't great at cooking, his mother-in-law prepares meals for them every day. When I first heard that, I was a bit taken aback, but Todd seems happy with Maddie, and his in-laws seem pleased to help out. Since he got married, he rarely comes home to visit. Although I feel a bit lonely, I was also proud of him for working hard to support his family, something he used to struggle with. However, out of nowhere, everything changed in an instant. My father, who had been battling illness for years, passed away, and I inherited his land. It was quite a bit of land, so while Gerald and I were discussing what to do with it, we got an outrageous proposal from Maddie.
Please let us build a multi-generational home on the land you inherited so that my parents can live with us.
Gerald and I were speechless at this sudden request. I remember them mentioning around Christmas that they wanted to build a house. We'd even consider helping them out a bit since they'd probably have kids soon, but we never expected them to ask for the land I'd inherited. That wasn't even the craziest part of Maddie's request.
Please give us $60,000 to help with the down payment for the multi-generational home.
She asked for the money as if it were the most natural thing in the world, without even a hint of apology. My frustration only grew. Meanwhile, Todd just sat there, grinning like it was none of his business.
We'll be able to live close by, so please make it happen.
At that time, it took an hour and a half to drive to Todd's apartment. Comparing to that, it'll be nice to live just 10 minutes away. However, living with his in-laws would make things complicated. We wouldn't be able to visit freely, and we'd always feel like we're walking on eggshells. Yet, Maddie acted like we should be grateful for the opportunity. We couldn't agree to anything on the spot, so we asked for time to think about both the house on the inherited land and the $60,000. Apparently, that didn't sit well with her, because the following weekend, Maddie brought her parents over to our house. The first thing her mother, Diana, said was,
"Since the day Maddie married Todd, I've been cooking his meals every day. After doing so much for him, how can you refuse to give us the land and the money?"
It's not like we ever asked her to do that. Her words were dripping with obligation. Her father, Daniel, chimed in.
You never know what the future holds. With a multi-generation home, you'll have peace of mind. We can help out with the kids too. There's nothing but benefits here. What could you possibly object to?
Of course, there are benefits for them. They wouldn't have to pay for the land, and if we cover the down payment, their mortgage would be easier. If anything happens, they'd be right there under the same roof. They'd get to see their grandchild every day. They expect us to foot the bill while they get everything they want, and I just couldn't understand it.
In any case, we're going to build the house, so thanks in advance.
Maddie said as she left. Both Gerald and I were left speechless by her arrogance. After that, we started getting calls every day, asking for the money. Gerald subtly told Todd that they wouldn't be giving him any land or financial support, thinking it was a bit too presumptuous.
I'm worried about you guys too. We won't be able to live close unless you agree to this. Please just go along with what Maddie wants, okay? Can't you consider my situation a little?
Todd was completely under Maddie's spell, unable to think for himself. In the end, our opinions were ignored, and they even started looking into construction companies for the custom house. A shoe closet and walk-in closet were non-negotiable. The open, spacious living room was just the beginning. His mother-in-law's dream kitchen was part of the plan, too. There was even an office for his father-in-law and a rooftop terrace. When they handed us the blueprints for this absurd multi-generation home, I nearly fainted.
This is our dream home. So please, give us the land soon. And financial support too.
Gerald and I exchanged glances, wondering if there could possibly be a more brazen daughter-in-law. We could have strongly refused right then and there. However, Todd said something completely unexpected that threw us into further confusion.
Stop dragging this out. Hurry up already. If you keep holding back, we'll cut ties with you.
Todd, who only listened to Maddie and in-laws, was no longer on our side. I felt like my once beloved son was growing more distant, and the emptiness was far greater than when he first left home. With that, we reluctantly decided to provide the support. The one who was most delighted, of course, was Maddie.
Please transfer $10,000 to the construction company. As for the remaining $50,000, we'll manage it ourselves, so give it to us in cash.
Following her instructions, I withdrew the full $60,000 from our account. Maddie, who had hardly ever visited our home before, came by with a big smile this time to collect the $50,000 in cash. In exchange for the money, she handed me a stack of documents for the multi-generation home.
Take these to the construction company. Make sure you transfer the money, okay?
She said quickly before leaving. A few days later, I discovered that there were some issues with the paperwork, so I went to Todd's apartment, but no one was home. I even went to his in-laws' house, but they weren't there either. It was then that a neighbor told me that Todd, Maddie, and her parents had all left for a 9-day, 8-night trip to Europe. Apparently, Maddie's mother, Diana, had cheerfully told the neighbor,
"We came into some extra money, so we're off. I'll bring you back a souvenir."
That extra money was undoubtedly the $50,000 in cash I'd given Maddie, which was supposed to be for the down payment on their house. I felt a deep sense of frustration, realizing that they had likely pressured us for the money just so they could splurge on luxury vacations. When I told Gerald about it, he also seemed unable to hide his shock. Todd had completely disregarded us, and we didn't know how to fill the gaping hole that had formed in our hearts. Even so, one thing was clear: we didn't want to continue being taken advantage of. With newfound determination, we went to the construction company to stop the multi-generation home from being built. To our surprise, as we arrived, someone casually greeted Gerald. It was an old school friend, James, who worked at the company. They hadn't seen each other since elementary school, and they spent some time reminiscing before we got to the heart of the matter. We explained everything that had happened, and James nodded thoughtfully as he listened. Then, he said,
"Don't worry, the final contract hasn't been signed yet. Besides, the land and money are yours, so you should do what you want with them."
We were taken aback by how much this made sense. The land and the money are ours. We had every right to build something that fulfilled our own dreams. Once we made that decision, things moved quickly. James sketched a simple design, incorporating everything we wanted. For the first time in a long while, we could see a light at the end of the tunnel. When Todd and Maddie returned from their European trip, they didn't mention the vacation, and of course, there were no souvenirs for us.
Did you transfer the down payment? Don't even think about holding back now that you've agreed. You're grown adults, after all.
Maddie often called to check on the money, but she never bothered to visit the construction site, likely because it was too much of a hassle for her. She even said,
I'm busy with work, so please take care of bringing refreshments to the workers. And don't be cheap, make sure it's something nice.
She doesn't even have a job. I couldn't help but be impressed by how easily she lied. The real reason for her so-called work was that they hadn't spent all the $50,000 on their European trip. They'd been traveling around the country afterward, continuing their lavish lifestyle. Todd's in-laws joined them on every trip. It hurt to think that Todd had become so absorbed into Maddie's family, spending all his time with them. On the contrary, Gerald and I were overjoyed as we watched our dream home being built. We were actually grateful that Maddie had completely left the project in our hands. A few months later, what was built wasn't a multi-generation home, but a studio apartment building. We canceled the multi-generation home contract and had an apartment building constructed for single residents instead. Of course, we covered all the costs ourselves. Todd, Maddie, and her parents, who hadn't shown their faces once during the construction process, were stunned when they saw the finished building.
What is this? Where's the multi-generation home?
Maddie was shaking with anger. Her parents were equally furious, raising their voices in anger.
Why is this a studio apartment? We can't live here as a family.
Do you think you'll get away with this? This is insane.
As the three of them ranted and raved, I hit them with the truth. The land is ours. The money is ours. What complaints could you possibly have? If anything, we're the ones full of questions.
And by the way, the $60,000 was supposed to help you build a house, but what did you do with the $50,000? Now that, to me, seems far more unreasonable.
Maddie visibly flinched. She quickly nudged Todd with her elbow, prompting him to step forward.
How could you do this to your family? I'm cutting ties with you. I'm serious. Do you really want that?
It was clear he expected us to beg him not to. I couldn't believe that he had become the kind of person who would threaten his parents like this. It was shameful.
Go ahead. I've had enough. Don't ever show your face to us again.
His face turned pale.
Come on, don't be serious. I was just joking.
He was flustered, but Gerald and I ignored him completely. Seeing Todd wasn't going to be of any use, Maddie finally spoke up.
The lease on our apartment is up at the end of the month, and we need to find a place to live. Please lend us some money.
Like I said, we've cut ties. We won't be providing any more help.
That's not fair. Todd quit his job so we could move here, and we have no savings. Where are we supposed to go?
Why don't you stay with your parents?
I suggested. That's when we heard an interesting bit of news. It turned out that Todd's in-laws were living in a rental themselves, and the building was being torn down, meaning they had to move out by the end of the month too. Both households were going to be homeless by the end of the month, something we hadn't anticipated. We couldn't help but crack a smile.
Well, would you like to live in this apartment? Oh wait, sorry, it's already fully booked.
The apartment building we had constructed was just a 5-minute drive to the main street, a prime location. With many universities and vocational schools nearby, the units were rented out by students even before construction was completed. The building construction was finished by then, and tenants would move into their units the following day.
You should still have some of that $50,000 left. Why don't you use it to find a new place?
With that, Gerald and I turned our backs on the four of them.
Todd, you need to stand up to them. You're the only one who can convince your parents.
That's right. Who do you think has been making you those delicious meals? You owe us.
Go talk to them. You love me, don't you? Do it for your beloved wife.
Even though Todd was being pressured by Maddie and his in-laws, we neither turned around nor stopped. Later, Todd came to our house alone and started apologizing.
I'm so sorry for saying I cut ties with you. I only have you and Dad. I've been acting cold because I've been trying to keep my in-laws happy.
I haven't forgotten the words he said when we hesitated to provide the money. Nor have I forgotten his angry attitude back then. He acted that way because he thought it was okay to lose his parents' trust. Even when he came up with excuses later on, I felt no sympathy at all. I let him continue making his excuses until he was finished, then told him to leave.
I'm your only son. How can you be so heartless?
Have you ever once thought about us since you got married? If you'd considered us at all, you'd know that a multi-generation home wouldn't be something we'd agree to.
When I pointed out that he'd completely sided with Maddie, Todd fell silent. We told him never to show his face again, never to ask for money, never to update us on his life, and in short, to stay out of ours. After we declared that we were cutting ties, Todd slumped his shoulders and left. A year has passed since then. Our apartment business is thriving. Though I feel like I'm already in retirement mode, Gerald has become so engrossed in running the apartments that he's eager to keep expanding as long as we can manage. We haven't heard from Todd since then. Just the other day, while shopping at a supermarket in the next town over, I spotted Maddie working the cash register, looking quite sullen. The wedding ring was gone from her left hand, and her appearance had become noticeably drab. I later heard from one of Todd's middle school friends' moms that Todd had divorced her, begged for his old job back, and living in a company dormitory. It seems Maddie frequently came to him asking for money, but eventually, the usually submissive Todd finally snapped. Since then, she hasn't come near him. She ended up moving into one of the oldest, most run-down apartments in the area with her parents. Her situation had drastically changed, forcing her to juggle jobs at both a supermarket and a cafe, leaving her little time to rest. Diana did piecework at home. Daniel worked as a day laborer security guard, and I heard through the grapevine that they were somehow managing to make ends meet. After the chaos surrounding the multi-generation home, Gerald and I are now living a peaceful and content life. The apartment we built has brought us a fulfilling, quiet retirement, with a healthy bank account to match. I love cleaning, so I make sure to tidy the apartment building every week. As long as I keep it clean, whenever a tenant moves out, a new one moves in right away. It feels great to keep the building looking nice and well-maintained. While I deeply regretted handing over that $50,000 in cash at the time, I now see it as a small price to pay to sever ties with that selfish daughter-in-law and her parents. As I enjoy the quiet that now fills our days, I look forward to spending the rest of my life peacefully with Gerald. Even if Todd were to appear in front of me now, begging,
Please forgive me.
I'm confident I'd stand firm and turn him away. I won't let anyone disturb the happiness we've finally found.